Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. It's been a few years since we've had the pleasure of Dr. Riegelman giving us an update on undergraduate public health education, and we're very fortunate to have him here today to give us his 2025 update. I'm Suzanne Walker, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Jones & Bartlett Learning, and I'll be kicking things off today. Let me give a proper introduction to today's presenter. Dr. Richard Riegelman is a professor and founding dean at the Milken Institute School of Public Health at the George Washington University. He is also author of several Jones & Bartlett Learning titles, including the best-selling Public Health 101, Improving Community Health, Population Health, a primer, and an AJN award-winning title, that's the American Journal of Nursing, award-winning title, COVID-19 Global Lessons Learned, which is actually an ebook, a digital product. Finally, we are very fortunate as well to have him as our series editor of the Essential Public Health series. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Dick to kind of share what he's going to talk about today.
Thank you very much. We've got a big agenda, lots to talk about, and we also are saving time, so there will be question and answers. And I strongly encourage you to put your thoughts into the question and answer box, because I think that'll really enhance the opportunity to really discuss issues that are really on your front of your agenda. What we're going to do today is we're going to start by a video that was put together by Jones & Bartlett that looks at the milestones in undergraduate public health, both the growth of the program and the milestones in its development. Then we'll take a look at where undergraduate public health stands in 2025. And then we'll take a look at some of the challenges and opportunities ahead. Obviously, these are times that with lots of change, and we're going to talk about some of the implications that has. Then we'll take a look at three national organizations that are really have engaged undergraduate public health and are really now having an impact on where things go in the future. One is the Council on Education for Public Health, CEPH, which is the accrediting body for institutions. Secondly, the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, and most specifically, their undergraduate network. And we'll talk about some of the activities that they've now developed. And finally, the National Board of Public Health Examiners, which is very much getting into the undergraduate mode. And we'll talk about how that really is going to, in the not so distant future, affect the way undergraduate public health is organized. So, and finally, we'll take a little look at, Suzanne will come back and talk to you about the Essential Public Health series and some of the new publications that are coming out. So with no further ado, let's take a look at milestones in undergraduate public health education. In 2003, there were so few undergraduate public health options that most readers thought the "all" was a typo. Building on the Institute of Medicine's report, the Consensus Conference outlined a framework for undergraduate public health minors and majors. The Consensus Conference laid the groundwork for developing undergraduate public health education in schools and programs of public health, as well as the full range of American colleges and universities. The policy statement of APHA recognized the potential of undergraduate public health education to fill unmet needs in the public health workforce, as well as providing a public health perspective for undergraduates preparing for a wide range of professions. The Healthy People 2020 objectives put undergraduate public health education on the national public health agenda and heralded a decade of exponential growth. ASPPH took the lead in developing a framework for high-quality undergraduate public health education compatible with graduate public health education. ASPPH's efforts to provide a voice for undergraduate public health programs has led to the development of ASPPH's Undergraduate Public Health Network. Formal recognition of the importance of undergraduate public health education in institutions without graduate public health education stimulated the development of large numbers of undergraduate majors and minors. The ASPPH Framing the Future report encouraged the development of undergraduate public health education at community colleges in collaboration with four-year colleges and universities. The report recognized the potential for community colleges to recruit students from underserved communities to make the future public health workforce more representative of the communities it serves. This milestone positioned undergraduate public health for a long-term future as an integral part of the continuum of public health education. COVID-19 brought to national attention the importance of understanding public health as part of a high-quality education and strongly reinforced the key role for undergraduate public health education. Look for new initiatives by the National Board of Public Health Examiners, providing credentials for community college students, public health minors, as well as public health majors. Undergraduate public health education is here to stay. So in 2003, it was really aspirational. But it's no longer aspirational, and we're going to talk about where things stand in 2025. First of all, the U.S. News and World Report identifies 418 colleges offering public health bachelor's degrees, and that's not hot off the press news. It's probably closer to 500 today. The Department of Education tells us that nearly 20,000 graduates, bachelor's degree graduates each year in public health and related fields. To get some perspective on that, that's about the same number as masters of public health degrees. So it is no longer an unusual degree. It is very much in the same magnitude as masters in public health degrees. In addition to the majors, there are a large number of minors. And about half of all programs that are offering majors are also offering minors in public health. And that's an important group that we're going to talk about more because it's a less recognized group, and it's one that is continuing to grow in both numbers and importance. In addition, it's important to recognize that this enormous growth has not just occurred in institutions that are called schools of public health or graduate programs in public health. About half the programs are called standalone programs. What a standalone program is one that has a bachelor's degree but does not have graduate education in public health. And about half of all undergraduate programs are located in those institutions. And that really means that this is a widespread movement. It means that it is in liberal arts education, it's in large institutions, public institutions, private institutions, and interestingly, it is a national movement. It is not just a regional movement. All areas of the country now have majors and minors in undergraduate public health. And as I said, about half of these programs are standalone programs. And you're going to hear more about what we mean by standalone programs in a minute. Most of these programs are generalist programs, which works very well in the sense that it complements the NBPHE, and it is to have a generalist undergraduate and a specialty-oriented MPH. But there are also a substantial number of programs that in health education leading to the CHES accreditation. Those too have a graduate component. So one of the good parts that I think things that have developed of late is that there's a good synchrony between the undergraduate programs and the potential graduate programs. But higher education, all of those of you in higher education, I don't have to tell you, this is a time of great change and some stresses and trauma. And that stresses are particularly being felt at the graduate level. I like to call it a triple threat. There is reduced financial aid, there is limiting international students, and there is reduced research funding. And these are putting a great deal of pressure on the graduate programs and um, but the undergraduate programs continue to grow. The undergraduate programs are less affected by most of these trends. And so that there is really a shift in emphasis. What was public health started out as a graduate activity. Today, undergraduate is very much at center stage. And, um, and they're actually being encouraged to grow and they're being encouraged to connect. And we'll talk about how the importance of connecting between the bachelor's degree programs and graduate programs and bachelor's degree programs and community colleges and their associate degree programs. So the potential for growth is very important, and the framework that is being increasingly put forward for doing that is the continuum of public health education. And you're going to hear that today. You're going to hopefully hear it considerably in the future. Is undergraduate public health is at the middle, it's at the center of the continuum of public health education, which goes from community colleges through doctoral education. So what was started at a very low level is now increasingly at center stage in public health education. So what are some of the new opportunities? Well, the continuum of public health education, as we talked about, is really the way I think to think about this. And this concept of the continuum of public health education came from the 2015 Framing the Future reports put out by the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health. And it's really now becoming operationalized. It's really becoming coming to completion, and we'll talk about the completion of the continuum of public health education. Now, how does that happen? Well, one is the encouragement of transfer from community colleges. We're going to talk about how that's on the agenda for the National Board of Public Health Examiners and is increasingly on the agenda of bachelor's programs as they seek to grow and to increasingly find qualified students. Secondly, is the connection in the continuum between bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. And another program that is critically important and is growing rapidly is the 5-year or bachelor's master's programs, ones in which you can take a 4-year bachelor's program and what is often a 2-year master program and do them in 5 years. So it's a great advantage to many students, both in terms of time and money, to be able to combine these programs in bachelor's, master's degree programs. And many institutions that have both bachelor's and master's are increasingly providing 5-year programs. In addition, there is a much more interest of the graduate-oriented faculty in teaching undergraduates. Some of this is due to the financial pressure that they're under, but I think it's an opportunity for the bachelor's degree programs to enlighten graduate faculty on how undergraduates are different. So I think you want to think about what you want the undergraduates to be able to, what makes them different than graduate students, and what do graduate faculty need to know. There also is a concept that is beginning to be considered called educational fellows, in which doctoral training is more than just TAs. It's really becoming educators and really understanding about undergraduate public health education. Finally, there is increased interest in public health among clinical degree programs. And so in medicine, in nursing, in dentistry, in pharmacy, all of these and more are suddenly want to incorporate public health into their curriculum. And when they do that, they really are starting at the undergraduate level. They really need to know about what is public health and basics of epidemiology and basics of health communications and really understand the key skills that public health can offer clinical students. And finally, there are joint programs. One of the things that we're seeing is that there is an interest in nursing, there's an interest in other undergraduate clinical and providing BS programs in both clinical disciplines as well as in public health. So there's lots of new opportunities and lots of potential to be able to make some growth despite the stresses that public health is under. Let's talk a little bit about the organizations that have been active in developing and are now really focusing on undergraduate public health. And the first we'll talk about is the Council on Education for Public Health. This organization has spent a lot of time over the years in developing graduate accreditation, but once undergraduate public health became an entity in the early parts of the century, they incorporated undergraduate public health into the accreditation process for schools and programs. So they were on top of things for the schools and programs right from the beginning. They did something else that's been very important, and that is they formally have recognized the existence and growth of what they call standalone baccalaureate programs, or often called SBP. These provide a whole set of accreditation criteria for programs that have bachelor's degrees but do not have graduate degree programs, standalone programs. And there's still only a small number that have gone through the accreditation process, but that number is growing, and it provides the standards for quality of undergraduate public health education. So I think you're going to see the CEPH very much in the loop in terms of undergraduate public health education. They revised the standalone program criteria in 2024. And that's very important because in this year, they announced that when they review the accreditation for schools and programs in 2026, that they will incorporate pretty much lock, stock, and barrel the standalone baccalaureate program criteria. So what we talk about 24 revision is really been said that it's going to be incorporated in the 2026 version. As you'll see, that's going to be important and somewhat controversial. So, as I said, they have announced that they have committed to using the 2024 criteria as part of the 2026 revision. So let's take a look at the 2024 revision and see what it did. First, we'll look at the process, because there have been both process changes and content changes. So let's take a look at some of the process changes. First of all, they have had they emphasizing greater workforce readiness, and this is part of a national movement. Clearly, there is a good deal of interest in connecting the workforce with education, and CEPH was very much a part of that. The big change that they're going to be making in the 2024 and 2026 revisions is requiring a practicum. And that's something that all of you who are developing and running programs want to be aware of, is that for many years a practicum or internship or some kind of a community-based experience was strongly recommended. But it will be in the new revision, it will be required. So greater emphasis on workforce readiness. Secondly, they are intending to expand community and student engagement. And that includes involvement in program planning, review, and governance. So it's much more of an active participation. Thirdly, they are expecting more data. They're expecting more tracking, and that's part of a national movement as well. They expect programs to collect, analyze, and use data from alumni, students, and employers. So these first three are all really about engaging the community that is being served, be the community that public health serves, the workforce. It's a greater degree of engagement. And those are all now really part of national movements. The fourth one, as you are probably aware, has become much more controversial. And CEPH requirements have not backed down at all on that, as far as I can tell. They have made clear that enhanced diversity, equity, and inclusion (DIS) are expectations for accreditation. And I searched right up to this morning to see if there's been any change in that, and that still remains the criteria. And there's no indication that that's going to change as part of the 2026 revision. There are also important content changes. And you'll see that some of these also will raise controversial issues, but they are very much a part of the accreditation process. One is social justice integration, and it is this is very much a part of public health, and it's very much a part of the accreditation process. Cross-cutting experiences have been part of the accreditation process for CEPH for some time, but this one in the revision was quite explicit about outlining some new ones, including cross-cutting concepts, including social justice, structural racism, advocacy, and systems thinking. So that there is a set of cross-cutting experiences that are required as part of the accreditation process. And finally, public health problem solving. And this is an explicit new expectation for CEPH accreditation. And it's one that I've been quite involved with in terms of trying to develop curriculum that are included in Public Health 101 and are developing increasingly on the basis of case studies. And the kind of things we're talking about is evidence-based problem solving. And cases that I already have in are folic acid and spina bifida, SIDS, and a variety of other evidence-based problem solving cases. Outbreak investigations. The CDC's approach to outbreak investigations is very much a part of what's going to be expected in problem solving. Pandemic prevention and control. One Health as a intervention, and systems thinking in areas from cigarettes to coronary artery disease to lead to motor vehicle injuries. So putting public health problem solving is a new area that I think deserves your attention in terms of the kinds of materials that are going to be needed to satisfy CEPH and some of the ways that you can use case studies. Case studies, I think, are a very valuable part, and this is a good example of how developing frameworks, presenting frameworks, and using these frameworks to solve public health problems is very much a central part of undergraduate public health education. So, having talked about CEPH a bit, let's talk a little bit about the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health. ASPPH has been involved with undergraduate public health since the beginning of the century, and they have continued to have programs and develop programs. But in recent years, what they've done is they've developed an undergraduate public health network. And this is designed really to bring together on an ongoing basis undergraduate programs from both the bachelor's degree level, but more recently, including community colleges programs as well. In order to be a member of the network, you need to be a regionally accredited institution. You do not need to be a CEPH accredited institution. So the base for the network is very large, and they hope to grow that. They now have about 90 members, and they hope to grow that over the next years and open it up to the vast majority of public health programs out there. They hold an annual undergraduate meeting a leadership retreat that goes on each September. I was made a presentation at the retreat this year, and there is it's a very active group with lots of questions and lots of interactions. And I suggest any of you who are thinking about becoming members of ASPPH look to coming to those retreats. They I think are very informative for those who do attend. In addition, the undergraduate public health uh, uh, initiatives are included in the ASPPH annual meeting, and these are each March in the DC area. And this year it'll be the 19th to the 21st, usually the Wednesday or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. Um, and the network or membership is not required to attend the ASPPH annual meeting. Um, in that national meeting, increasingly now that they have incorporated it into the national meeting, it has a large number of undergraduate sessions. It is a place to talk about the broader issues, but it's also a place to learn more about undergraduate and to meet undergraduate uh, members. So I think you'll find that the network is, if you're interested in having a national involvement with the your undergraduate program, I think being part of this network can be very helpful. Some of the activities, as I said, they have the annual retreat. This year they had it at UCLA. Next year it's at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, so that they've had some very nice places to have meetings. There's also a monthly newsletter. There's an annual Excellence in Undergraduate Public Health Education Award that's given at the ASPPH annual meeting. And a new activity is what has been called feed grants, public health education enhancement grants. These are open only to members of the network, and they're competitively awarded to network members to support innovations in undergraduate public health education. And innovation is very broadly defined, so that there's opportunities to do innovations in the whole range of development of undergraduate public health. The third organization I want to talk to you about is the National Board of Public Health Examiners. And this organization, which is really relatively new, it's only now reaching its 20th anniversary, has started out as public health education did with graduate certification. And you had to be a graduate, either in a graduate program. You could take it as a bachelor's degree student, but you had to have 5 years of work experience, in a relevant work experience. So it was limited in terms of access for the bachelor's degree. And its content was consistent with an MPH core curriculum. And that's been the first and still the major activity of the National Board of Public Health Examiners. But they've added, as of 2025, the fall of 2025, a new certification called Disease Investigation Specialist, or Certify in Disease Investigation. And this is an initiative that was promoted by CDC and has been engaged by ASPPH and the National Board of Public Health Examiners. And what's unique about this certification is it requires only a high school degree plus some community experience. But in that case, you need 2 years of work experience. If you have an associate degree, you need 1 year of work experience. And if you have a bachelor's degree, you can get it directly out of the bachelor's degree program. The examination will begin in late 2025. The content includes case investigations, contact tracing, partner services, field investigation outbreaks, emergency preparedness, and community outreach. So it's really a community health worker who really specializes in working for health departments and provides the infrastructure that is increasingly needed in governmental public health. So in some ways, what the National Board has done is it's done the bookends. It started at the graduate level, at the highest accreditation level, and then it added the very introductory level. So it has the master's, it has a one that you can take even as a graduate of as a high school graduate. So in between, there's a hole, and that hole I call undergraduate public health. And I think it's critical that we complete the continuum of public health by filling it in and having the National Board of Public Health Examiners fill it in with certification processes. And that's what may well happen in the coming years. There are two processes that the National Board of Public Health Examiners Board last month endorsed as a direction to be studied and to be implemented. Two certification processes are now on the table, and let's take a look at the next slide. One, they're tentatively calling foundational credential. The name is still up for grabs, but the aim would be to provide a credential that's compatible with public health, a bachelor's degree in public health. And they have moved quite a ways on that. They will be releasing the competencies that are expected in the coming months. And they are planning to move ahead. Their board has endorsed moving ahead with the certification in the not too distant future. So you're going to hear more about a credential that is focused on bachelor's degree students. A second activity of the board is to develop what's been called entry-level micro-credential, a micro-credential. And for those of you who are familiar with community colleges, micro-credentials have become very important in connecting community college students with the workforce. They're less prevalent in the bachelor's degree field, but they're beginning to be, things are beginning to move in that direction. And the National Board has set up a process where they're going to study the possibility of developing entry-level micro-credentials that would be developed subsequent to the foundational credential. And it's designed to serve two populations and be studied to see if it can serve these two populations. One are minors in public health. And as I said, we know that there are something like 50% of the programs that have majors have minors. So we're talking about a large number of existing minors. And as the credentialing process develops, they want to be sure that minors are not left out in the cold, that there really is a role for minors in getting credentialing as well. So that's one audience. The second is community colleges. There's been interest in community colleges since the 2015 report on community colleges and public health, but the progress, frankly, has been slow. And but there is increased interest, and the community colleges tell us that the way to grow public health community colleges is to have a micro-credential. So I think that that's now very much in the center of the action. And if there is, over the next 3 to 5 years, a foundational credential and an entry-level micro-credential, then we will really have filled in the continuum of public health, from certify in public health at the master's degree, a foundational credential at the bachelor's degree, an entry-level micro-credential for minors and community college students, and finally a disease investigation certification that can start as early as high school. So the continuum of public health education is no longer a vision. It has the potential for becoming a reality. Next slide. So let's just look at what progress has been made in the last 20 years of undergraduate public health education. The last 2 decades have witnessed an exponential growth in undergraduate public health education. We were talking about very small numbers 20 years ago. We're now talking about 20,000 bachelor's degrees and a large number of minors as well. Undergraduate public health has become a key component of the continuum of public health education. You can't think of the continuum of public health education without seeing undergraduate public health is at the center of the continuum. And there are now the better part of 20,000 graduates per year, approximately the same number as MPH graduates. Three big public health organizations in education have fully engaged undergraduate public health. CEPH, ASPPH, National Board of Public Health Examiners have fully recognized and are making undergraduate public health education very much a part of their agenda. The opportunities to realize the 2023 recommendations that all undergraduates have access to education in public health is real. It is now it is now tangible. It is now something we can achieve. I'm proud to say that I like to say that the Essential Public Health series has played a role in making these things happen. And so I'd like to take some time, turn things back over to Suzanne, and who tell us a little bit about where things stand with the Essential Public Health series.
Great. Thank you, Dick. The Essential Public Health series has indeed played an important role in undergraduate public health education. Here are some key titles that are on the Essential Public Health series list. Although the series really spans the full undergraduate public health education curriculum, from introductory courses in public health and epidemiology and global health to more advanced courses in health policy, health education, health behavior, and program planning and the like. So right now we are kicking off our 20th anniversary celebration of the Essential Public Health series. And as Dick kind of laid out, it really began very early in 2004 in response to an undergraduate public health movement. And that resulted in us publishing our first title in the series, which was Essentials of Environmental Health by Robert Fries, actually in the spring of 2026. What has made the series so successful is that it's written specifically for undergraduate and offers a clear, consistent approach that brings public health to life through case studies, short vignettes, real life examples, and the like. It's also written by authors who are well-known experts in the field. For example, Richard Skolnick in global health, or Lisa Sullivan in biostatistics, or Richard Riegelman in introductory public health. So the names you certainly would recognize. As I mentioned, it's really designed to cover the full spectrum of courses in undergraduate public health. And as Dick Riegelman mentioned, it addresses the ASPPH and CEPH expectations for undergraduate public health degrees. The series is also supported by extensive ancillary materials for each text. These typically include, instructor manual, PowerPoint slides, faculty test banks, often midterms and finals, and sometimes some enhanced ancillaries depending on the title. We also, for their 20th anniversary, Dr. Riegelman has created a special free resource entitled Reading Public Health Research, which I'm going to tell you about on the next slide. So Reading Public Health Research is a short 28-page guide that offers a step-by-step questions to ask approach to reading research articles and abstracts. So it does not require any previous coursework in epidemiology or research method. However, it's designed to illustrate the reading research approach using simulated research articles and research abstracts from high-quality research journals, both of which provide practice reading research. There's also knowledge test questions with fillable PDF answer boxes to reinforce learning. In addition to the guide, the 28-page guide, there is also an answer key with explanations. And this provides explanations for the 40 questions in the guide. There's also a helpful instructor's manual, which offers tips on teaching, suggestions for developing additional exercises, and figures and tables that can be used in teaching. Currently, Reading Public Health Research is available as part of the instructor resources for some of our introductory titles, including Public Health 101, Essentials of Public Health by the Burkhead team, also for Epidemiology 101, and it will be available for our forthcoming Environmental Health, Essentials of Environmental Health title. That said, if someone is interested in using it alongside any essential public health title, we can certainly make that happen and put you in touch with your account representative to do so. So just wanted to highlight some of the recent and forthcoming releases. In 2024, we had 2 titles published. We had the new edition of Bob Fries's Epidemiology 101, came out in his 3rd edition with a new author, Scott Quinlan. Then in the fall of last year, we published a 3rd edition of Essentials of Health Economics by Diane Dewar. This summer, we published a 5th edition of Essentials of Public Health by Burkhead, Morrow, and Pirani. And we're looking forward to publishing the 4th edition of what was the cornerstone of the Essential Public Health series, a new 4th edition of Fries's Essentials of Environmental Health, which will be coming out in late January of 2026. And speaking of which, let's talk about our 2026 titles. So beyond the 4th edition of the environmental health text, we'll have new titles in health behavior, the 4th edition of Essentials of Health Behavior by Mark Edberg, a 6th edition of Essentials of Health Policy and Law by Sarah Walensky and Joel Teitelbaum. And we're looking forward to a 5th edition of Global Health 101 with Richard Skolnick and new co-author Greg Martin. Also on deck for 2027, we do have a new edition of Essentials of Health Information Systems by Jean Belgrosky, and Dick Riegelman and his co-author Brenda Kirkwood will be doing a 5th edition of Public Health 101. Given the interest in undergraduate public health education and teaching resources, we've created a website that not only showcases the text in the Essential Public Health series, but also offers additional resources for undergraduate public health. So in the resources section, you'll find links to key sites such as, ASPPH's Undergraduate Public Health Network, CEPH accreditation details for undergraduate public health education, and a number of documents to download as well. You can see the URL is on the screen, and we encourage you to take a look at that site when you can. And I believe we are at the end of our presentation, so I'd like to open it up to questions, and it looks like we have a few in the question box. Sophie, do you want to take the questions?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Suzanne. I'm Sophie Teague. I'm the product manager for public health here at Jones & Bartlett. And let's see, we have one question that came in right away is about the upcoming American Public Health Association annual meeting and whether there will be any sessions on undergraduate public health at that meeting.
Absolutely. Yes, as many of you know, the American Public Health Association has a major national meeting with fascinating exhibits as well as many presentations. And I'll be there, and I've looked already at the sessions, and it's really quite encouraging, the number of undergraduate public health sessions. For instance, there are specialty areas that are included. For instance, there's a session on teaching biostatistics. There's one on using determinants of health for teaching. There's one on the CDC's new program in the John L. Lewis Undergraduate Scholars Program. So the CDC has actually incorporated undergraduate public health students into their activities. There's also important general sessions. There's one on core competencies, which I think is for everybody an important area to understand. Secondly, there is one on undergraduate internships. So I just think when you look through this a large number of sessions, that there are quite a few that are really focused on undergraduate public health. In addition, there are student activities, and many of these include undergraduate public health. There's our poster sessions. There's an award session that are all part in which undergraduates are very much included. I think you'll find that undergraduate students and undergraduate faculty are very much welcome, and there's a nice role for undergraduates at APHA.
And just an add-on to that, Jones and Bartlett Learning will be at APHA in the expo hall. So if you are there in person, we encourage you to come by. We're at booth, I think, 1406, and we'll have all of our full curriculum of books, not just the Essential Public Health series, but everything we publish in public health and a few other areas will be at our booth at APHA.
That's great. Thank you, Suzanne. Looking forward to being there as well. Let's see, we have a few more questions that have come through in the Q&A. And if you do have a question, feel free to use the Q&A box to ask that question. Here's one, someone who's just at their community college, they've just created a public health pathway for students, and they're looking for a recommendation for a textbook that would be appropriate for community college students for an introductory public health class. I have a few in mind, but Dick would love to hear your commentary on that.
Despite my self-interest in Public Health 101, I also should let you know that another one of the books in the series, the Burkhead book on essential public health, is an excellent book, and it is a different look at public health. It's really a governmental public health. It really emphasizes public health at the local, state, and federal levels in terms of government. And Gus Burkhead and his colleagues have years of experience in working in governmental public health. So if that's the focus in your program, certainly that book is also one that is of high quality.
That's great. And just to be clear, I'll add that Dr. Riegelman also authors Public Health 101, which is also appropriate for an introductory public health course. Let's see. Here's another question about the CHES, the Certified Health Education Specialist, and the MCHES certifications. How do those fit in to undergraduate public health?
Okay, well, I think, there's a long-standing history of the undergraduate health education and the certifications. And as I mentioned briefly, they parallel. Most of the programs are generalist programs. The undergraduate CEPH program, the undergraduate CHES program, is really a health education, and it has its own certification route. It has a certification at the bachelor's degree and at the master's degree. So I think that there is, you'll see you'll see that is a coherent line from bachelor's to master's. And so it's an alternative to generalist, which also is coherent, but it's generalist to specialist. And so I think those are two the biggest and certainly both viable options for organizing any public health program. So I would say that the CHES, the health education at the undergraduate level, is an alternative to the generalist program, which is more likely to flow into an MPH.
That's great. Thank you. Here's another question about student engagement. Can you expand more on what will be expected in terms of expanded community and student engagement related to the 2024 CEPH or CEPH revisions?
Yeah. Well, in general, CEPH requires surveys. They expect that you will identify the community you serve, that has your internships and your practicum, which is the term they're using for undergraduate, and that you survey their needs, their willingness to participate. You do that for the workforce, and that to the extent that you have advisory committees, that there be representatives that are from these populations and workforce employers. So it's really it's not a you must do this, but you must show that you are engaged with your community and that you have information from them that you're using to develop and modify your program.
That's great. Thank you. Let's see, here's another question. Any suggestions on how to respond to undergraduate students who are concerned about their future prospects in the field, given current uncertainty within the public health landscape?
Okay, well, that's an important question. And I think one of the good news about undergraduate public health is that the job market is quite broad. It's not limited to jobs that have the title public health in them. What we're seeing, and at the undergraduate more so than at the graduate, that the kinds of jobs that people are getting out of undergraduate public health are range from healthcare to insurance to consulting to marketing to to going on to law school and business and a whole variety of things. Only the minority of students who graduate from with a public health degree are getting jobs that are called public health. They use public health skills. They use epidemiology. They use health communication. They use the skills of public health, but they are not necessarily called. So if you're advising undergraduates, they shouldn't just look at the jobs in public health. They should look much more broadly, and they should promote the skills they've learned because that's what the employers want these days. They want skills, and they're not really interested so much in the title of the degree.
Excellent, thank you. And kind of along those lines, here's a question about the CPH certification. What's the benefit of having your CPH if you have your MPH?
Well, the intent of this certification was that it was to become part of the is a credential for recruitment, particularly into governmental public health, and it is moving in that direction. Probably not as fast as they intended. But it is certainly jobs are that is certainly a leg up in getting governmental public health jobs and maybe in the future helpful in other ways. Now, in 5 years, I anticipate that there will be credentials at the bachelor's degree. Maybe in 3 years, there'll be a credential at the bachelor's degree level as well. So credentialing is becoming critical. And that's certainly a national movement. That's not just a public health movement. Employers are looking for credentials, not just degrees. I think that in the future, it will be valuable to have a credential at the CPH and also presumably at the bachelor's degree level.
Excellent, thank you. Three more questions here, and they're all related to textbook recommendations. One is about the Epidemiology 101, Fries's Epidemiology 101, the new third edition, authored by Scott Quinlan. And comparing that to another higher level epidemiology text also originally authored by Bob Fries, and now lead author is Stephen Buca, the seventh edition of Epidemiology for Public Health Practice. Can you compare and contrast those
My
two?
understanding is that, one of the things that Bob Fries did and that Scott Quinlan has continued is to really make this accessible to students without a quantitative orientation. The barriers at the undergraduate level to quantitative epidemiology are still pretty high. And Scott has done a really good job of minimizing the quantitative aspects and clarifying the quantitative aspects, making with examples, with illustrations about how to think quantitatively without doing a lot of math. And I think that so that it really is, if you're really looking for an introductory undergraduate text, I can highly recommend Scott Quinlan's third edition.
That's great. Thank you. A few more questions coming through. Um, Related to the textbooks, there's a question about, well, two topic areas, one, health, and then social and environmental determinants of health. Number one, do you have a recommendation if you're teaching social and environmental determinants of health for a text? And then likewise for One Health, what within the series covers One Health, and are there any publications expected?
Okay, well, let me talk about the social determinants of health. Mark Edberg has a second edition of a very good book on uh, on health, culture, and diversity. And it really does take on social determinants of health. And it's a very, lots of case studies, very accessible. Mark writes really for an undergraduate audience. And so I can highly recommend that book as a way of broadly looking at social determinants. And Mark's an anthropologist, and so he has a strong cultural orientation toward understanding how people look at health. So that's one approach to take to social determinants of health. The One Health activity. Back in 2016, I published with Jones and Bartlett a book called One Health from AIDS to Zika. And it's a little out of date these days, but I think that was at the early stage of this. At this point, there's been quite a movement in One Health, and I think what's happened in One Health, there are very few courses that are just one freestanding One Health. What we've tried to do in the series is to integrate One Health, and it's you'll find it in a number of the new books that are coming out, including our Public Health 101. So unless you have the unusual thing of trying to do a full course in undergraduate in One Health, I suggest you integrate it into one of your core introductory courses.
Excellent, thank you. Here's another question about certifications, specifically about the undergraduate certification. Is there a plan for it, and when will it be available?
Well, it was been approved in principle by the National Board of Public Health Examiners. Now they have to, and they have had people, they've had a working group that's been working on competencies, which are the core to doing that. Those competencies should be released in the coming months. We anticipate that it will be here in not too distant future. I don't want to tell you dates because they're uncertain, but I can tell you that my impression is that it will not be before 2027.
Here's an interesting one. What are you hearing about the level of interest in public health among undergraduates in this current landscape? And then this person adds that anecdotally, they've noticed a decrease in incoming freshmen electing public health as their major.
Well, there's a major thrust in less undergraduates in general. During COVID, there was a explosion of interest, and it's inevitable that there's going to be somewhat of a decline in terms of new students in this current environment. But the good news is nationally, undergraduate public health is still growing. That is not necessarily the case at the graduate level. And there is now a emphasis, as I've talked about, is of putting emphasis on growing, of recruiting community college students, of doing BS-MPH students, of doing joint degree students, because undergraduate public health really does serve a lot of audiences, including going on to clinical training. Yes, it has slowed down, but it has not declined, and there's now an emphasis on really increasing the numbers in the future.
There is a question about joint programs. So do you have suggestions for joint programs with public health and undergraduate nursing programs that already have tight schedules?
Yeah, I mean, undergraduate nursing I think that's one of the encouraging things. Public health is not new to nursing. Nursing has always been central to public health, but there is a revitalization of community health nursing, and in fact, the National Board is having a new certification process in community health nursing and public health nursing. So I think you will see a increased nursing emphasis. Now that means there'll be interest in having it as part of their curriculum, but frankly, curriculum in nursing is very tight. There's not much room in the curriculum, so that one of the real emphasis that is on joint programs. So BS in nursing and public health is a very viable alternative.
That's great. All right, we have two more questions here. One, while we're speaking of community health nursing, there's a question about a standalone book on community health.
Well, I think we'd have to understand a little bit what people mean by community health, because for many people, community health and public health are very closely related. So the introductory books, in fact, Public Health 101 is named as a subtitle, Improving Community Health. So I think that anything that takes the big picture of public health and applies it to the community is, in my view, a community health book.
That's great. And then last question here, which I think I can probably answer. With the new Essentials publication coming up, are there any plans to integrate AI tools as a means to support undergraduate learning? And I can tell you, well, let me first throw that to you, Dick, in terms of at a broader level within undergraduate education. What are thoughts on AI tools?
Well, clearly AI is with us and growing, and I think there's a number of ways to look at it. One is, how does AI affect public health? And I've had some experience integrating the concept of what AI is doing for public health into introductory courses, in epidemiology courses, because clearly public health is being affected by AI. So from that standpoint, it's a whole nother subject about how students are using AI. But I think that what Sophie can tell you about how Jones and Bartlett is responding and going to respond to AI is going to be very important.
Yeah, and what I can say is, we're nothing official, no official announcements yet. However, we are working on a tool, an AI tool that we would like to integrate within the ebook experience for students. It'll be a sort of virtual student mentor that will be visible within each page of the ebook that would allow students to say, hey, can you generate some flashcards for me, or quiz me on this or that, or help me understand this concept. And that tool is right there on the page for them to give them that support, pulling content directly from the text that they're looking at on screen. So much more to come on that in 2026, but the integration of AI tools is on the roadmap for Jones and Bartlett product for sure. All
Great.
right, well, that wraps up all of our questions. I will
Great.
turn it back over to you, Suzanne.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everyone who's left for joining us. We're glad you joined us today, and we appreciate the questions. It shows that there's a lot of interest in undergraduate public health education. Also want to extend a huge thank you to Dr. Riegelman for all of his time and insight today. I think his expertise and insight are really unparalleled, and we truly appreciate him and his ongoing commitment to undergraduate public health education. So
Thank you. My pleasure. My
today's
pleasure.
webinar has been recorded. We will be posting it on our YouTube channel. So thanks, everyone. This concludes today's webinar. Bye, everyone.